All right. Welcome to another episode of Absent with Our Lord podcast. Jonathan and Cassie here. We launched a couple episodes already, figured out Spotify and Anchor channel to get it going. So hope everybody's starting to see that on Spotify.
That's amazing, isn't it? Technology, wonderful thing. But sitting here this episode, just going to kind of, again, open forum, try and get this figured out as we go, trying some different equipment, different type of setting out here in the local man cave.
Yeah, so the last episode we had my cheap-ish mic, and I wanted to make sure that we could do small version anywhere, almost like movable. So that's just a tiny microphone hooked up to my phone. And then now Jonathan's got some legit podcast equipment. I feel like Joe Rogan.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure Mac will take some pictures, but I'd go into detail, but I don't know first thing about it. Other than a good deal, hard to pass up.
Charity Jack for this podcast lineup.
But here we are, Absent with Our Lord podcast. Just kind of dive right in and talk about some things we'd been mentioning. Duck season, I think we went in detail about that, even though it was kind of slow. Had some good days, lots of inclement weather, but overall, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. Not the worst by any means, but not the best season. Good times, good memories, and jump right in and talk about our next subject.
Talk about wearing out your lifetime waders in 3 months.
Yeah. So that's everybody's into that Sitka gear, right?
Yeah.
It was like a hate-love. You like the pattern or not? I personally thought it was hideous and ugly, but
I like the, I guess just like any camo for each application, for corn hunting, I think it's excellent camo. You start getting into some of the timber stuff, I think the timber camo would be good. You try and take that application. I don't even remember what it's called. What was that pattern?
The timber is the darker one.
Yeah, the timber is good.
Lighter colored. I don't know what our pattern's called.
Oh, well, this is terrible. We're sitting here talking about it, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I guess you get like rider's block. I'm sitting here.
The club got the lighter version of Sitka gear.
Like the Optifade
pattern. So Jonathan had a rough, full week with work and family and just life getting on him, and he goes to hunt Saturday and blows out his whole leg of his waders and sends me a picture. And if you guys see the podcast, I put a picture of his bare feet standing on these $1,000 pair of waders.
And that was what the illusion was. She said, "How's the hunting?" And I sent her that picture, and I said, let's just say it's a continuance of life yesterday, because life will definitely throw you some curveballs. I had a rough day and started out, again, not knocking the product by no means, but what I would call a very modest tangle in some brush. Ended up into a huge split right near the seam. But again, not to get on product bashing, because they're probably the most comfortable boots on a wader I'd ever put on, even though I own a brand new pair of lacrosse waders.
And wouldn't you say we probably were in our waders more hours than the above average amount of waterfowlers?
Absolutely.
So definitely every day of the weekend, all day, we worked in them, set up blinds, and then
super comfortable.
Took down. So.
Super comfortable to wear. Just again, you're going to get into tangles, and that was the continuation of something, again, that you would link to not an optimal outcome, to be standing there when it's 14 degrees and soaked in wet, barefoot in a duck blind. Again, we hunted with some people that were like, there's zero way. I stuck it out. I hunted all day. I, of course, did have muck boots in the car. And again, we're dropping a lot of brand names here, or lacrosse boots, but muck, rubber boots, whatever you want to call them, in the car that I was able to go get about midday, 10, 11 o'clock, put them on. I didn't want to put them on with wet feet. I'm a weirdo when it comes to keeping your feet dry and wet, that there was no way I was putting wet socks in my dry boots. So I let my socks dry out by the heater. And then once they got dry, I was able to go get my boots and put them on and hunted the rest of the day. But it goes back to, we never know what life is going to give us. And there's two ways you can look at that. I could look at it as, oh, there's a very expensive item. But again, I was blessed that doing the things we do, my cost in that, or, it cost somebody, but my cost out of my pocket, it was a whole lot easier to swallow when you work for an outfitter that's generous and was able to purchase those for me. I'd be lying to say that, did I have an investment in it? Well, at the end of the day, you always want to keep anything nice, but anybody that knows me will absolutely say, if it can happen, it's going to happen to me. I'm going to be hard on something. I'm going to put it to the test. I'm probably not going to take care of it the best, but I can give you an honest review. And at the end of the day, yeah, they were comfortable. The boots were comfortable. I just put them probably in a situation where most other waders would have got torn. But at the same time, I also, I've owned a lot of other waders to where I feel like maybe would have come out better, but could have got down, could have been upset, could have went home. Lots of guys would have, but I chose to take it with a grain of salt and say, to each their own. We're going to go ahead and hunt. We're going to see what today holds. We're going to make the best of a bad situation that I feel like I'm pretty good at doing, keep my head held high and hunt it out. See what if the ducks fly.
I know that I just appreciated the media aspect. If you guys follow our social media, it was like near whenever we started the Instagram and Facebook, I have a picture of Jonathan at sunset with his waders pulled down and his jeans. Looks like he's peed his pants. So that was the second no good wader picture for social media. It's a giggle.
Again, any waterfowler that's ever been in the water with waders know what I'm talking about. You're going to get those leaks, and we just press through it and fight through it and keep our head up and keep a good attitude.
So we made contact with Aaron Hall. He's checked us out on Spotify.
AKA Biff.
Yeah, Biff. And he said the audio is pretty decent, so this audio is going to be even better.
We hope.
And he said he wants to join, so we'll get excited about that. That's some stuff coming up, and I'm sure once we get more episodes, more content, people will start commenting. I know 4 or 5 people already like, oh, found you. I think it's cool to pull it up on my truck. Kind of feels real,
Big time. And,
yeah.
and something else that was brought up, that going back to Biff, he's got an amazing testimony. I met him a lot of years ago when Biff was a young man, before Biff found a significant other and he had children, and I don't want to ruin anything, but I watched him grow up in life and tried to mentor and help him. And at the end of when the dust settles, we'll change that. When the dust settles, that is how there's some giggles. I noticed in the last podcast, you find these, I don't want to say mnemonic devices. Somebody comment below if you know what I'm talking about. But in speech class, we learned that when you were trying to fragment sentences together and you don't practice thoroughly, or you don't take your note cards in front of you and study good, that you find a word like or a literary item
at the end of the day.
So last podcast I said at the end of the day, so I worked on it and I almost caught myself saying it, but I said when the dust settles. Biff's got a testimony, and that's what they were giggling about, because I already told them before the podcast, I'm not saying it, but I almost said it. So that happens. We'll get better as we go. There's a great testimony from each and every person at this table, and we hope to share it. But, sharing our personal lives is just that. It's our personal fears, our personal addictions that we've had to overcome, even our shortcomings. But to the point of a earlier podcast, I'm no different than anybody else. I have shortcomings. I fail. I fall. I stumble. But get back up, keep going. That's all I know to do. I posted on our website, if you guys don't know about it, it's whiteoaklegends.com. Check it out, because just today, as a matter of fact, I went up there and updated my bio to post my favorite scripture that I mentioned in an earlier podcast of Philippians 3, 13 and 14, and it's just keep trying. And mentioned Jordan Peterson last time. Every day, make a better version of yourself, and in 5 years, you'll never know where you'll be. Lots of smart guys will tell you that. Every day, pick one thing to get better on. Whether that's your walk with God, whether that's getting closer to your spouse, your mate, your children, whatever you choose to, if you focus on that and perceive becoming better at it, and you keep that pursuit up, you will succeed. Something I heard this week, and then I'll let somebody else get in here and take this, was, and I don't even remember what I heard it, but it said about failure. It says, I don't consider myself a failure, but along the way I figured out 10,000 different ways that this doesn't work. I'm like, that's exactly right, and that's what we're all trying to do at life here. You guys got any comments or thoughts on that?
Well, my one thing, talking to Aaron Hall about these podcasts, I would say that I listen to podcasts more than anything, more Spotify versus YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. Something about like working out or walking looking for sheds. I can relay content to myself in memory just listening to it audibly while I'm working out or whatever, preaching or sermons or stuff like this. And like when you listen to guys like Rogan or, Cam Haynes and Jordan Peterson or Jocko's podcast, like those are some of the heavy hitters. What do you guys feel like this podcast can open us up to that the other outlets of social media doesn't?
Oh, I'm kind of with you today. A young man there at work named Cody come up and he, just out of the blue, was like, "You're a waterfowler?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I enjoy that. Definitely a sport." And he was kind of making small talk, and I turned him on, and I said, of course, just doing this in our first podcast drop, and I'm like, "Here, you got to check us out on Spotify." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I love to listen to podcasts." And I don't know, I'm going to guess I didn't ask him exactly his age, but he's definitely a lot younger than me, probably half my age. And he was excited. I immediately texted him a link to it, and he's like, "I'm going to check it out." And to him, kind of to your point, was, wow, these guys got a lot of irons in the fire.
Legit.
But
I always come back to the word legit.
it goes to exactly what we were talking about, and you said it last time. If I wanted to be a photographer, I'd put my pictures out there. You and I know how to pursue things and go after them. And if we can teach that, it's something that I've tried to instill in my children. Again, I go back to it. Anytime my kids have fallen short, I make them pay the piper. Ownership. Talking about Jocko, things of that nature. I'm like, you're going to call them. You're going to go up to them and tell them you made a mistake or you did not do something right. And never at the end of the day is it somebody else's fault. Look at what you contributed to that. Yeah. And I mean, that goes to, again, I go back to life has thrown me some lemons, but I had a probably 4-year-old that one day was playing and got into it resulted in damaging somebody's car. Absolutely, my 4-year-old's going to pay for that. He's going to make up and understand that that's something that you don't do. You don't take part of it. Anyway, okay, maybe it wasn't 4, maybe it's 20. I don't know, but he was old enough to know better
9.
in that situation. And that person, again, I'm
4 and
still
20.
personal friends with, and he said, no offense, but years later, he's like, you're the only one that ever made your children pay for that. The only one. Of course.
Is that kind of like broken window of a house with a baseball kind of thing?
Yeah,
He
that type
did
of
something
deal.
with a vehicle and he's going to fix it.
Yep, exactly.
It was a really good parenting lesson in general, that whole story. I look back and I think, oh, I'm glad it was harsh. It felt like we were overkill in the moment, but that got our point across, and we've not had any trouble with Patton ever since, ever. So he might have learned the hard way, but
This is kind of bouncing around, but like kid discipline and then how they'll do in society later. I mean, it matters. I was raised by a Marine, and my parents had me later in life, and I mean, there was no, I mean, that window of you're in trouble was very small. And I think that it made me a different adult than some of my classmates or something later.
Yeah, because you're definitely one of the most disciplined people I know.
I am?
Yes.
Oh.
Ownership, accountability go a long way, and you teach that from a early age, and it takes people further than they ever understand. The aspect of teaching them to love God, teaching them to trust God, teaching them that that's faith-based is important in their life. I teach that.
Doing
That's
right
my
thing
second thing is owning up. Take accountability for your actions, even when others make mistakes. What did you contribute to that? And then the ownership of, if you want something to happen, pursue it. Go after it hard. Make it happen. Do everything you can. And then when you fail, again, you learn lessons along the way. Try it different, because we're not going to get it right the first time.
So, like the pursuit, right? We're to mix AWOL being outdoors and faith-based. It's God is always pursuing us no matter what we get into, and no matter what we, discern to, no, I'm not going to do that, even though that's what we're supposed to do and that's the path. But the pursuit is always there. He's always pursuing us. And just like regular life disciplines, I've caught, me being a college athlete, that set of discipline is instilled. And just almost to your words that you just said, like, if you want something, go take it. I feel like if I wanted to, learn a new trade, that I would, and be passionate about it and do it, that I would learn it to its fullest extent. I know this year what I want to do is learn more aspects of my fishing, just because of I need to learn what our content is reaching, just so I don't fluently talk to people about fishing. Like, I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm going to figure it out. So I'm going to pursue that.
Sounds awesome. And that's another important aspect of when you talk about these attributes, the ownership, the accountability, is setting yourself targets and goals in life. And see, you've already done that when you talk about fishing. Whenever I think about something that I want to do, same thing. A lot of people say fake it till you make it. I'm not about that. I'm especially with the tools. That's what I tell my children. You guys have so much more advantage. If you wanted to work on a car, when I was coming up through the ranks, you bought a Haynes manual or a Chilton and you read, and that's just what you did. And it had some pictures, diagram A, slot B. Now you can turn on YouTube, you can get on a forum, you can go check this out. There's so much good out there that can be reached. I said, Google, man. I taught my kids that Google's not for just, checking out the newest trend. Is like, if you want to learn something, if you want to dive into wildlife, whatever floats your boat, I guess, whatever tickles your fancy, that you just can go out, find all that content, and it's right at your fingertips to push. And setting small goals and small targets for you to press towards, or for you to try to achieve, that's a step to bettering yourself, to being a successful person, whether it's in fishing or in spiritual growth or in whatever you're doing. That's essential.
I'm curious, as we progress and as we do this podcast and we continue on with the social media, is I have yet to find very many people that are doing what we're doing. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces of, quote unquote, like Christian hunting, like type of scenarios. But, and I want to listen to them too, because I want to see what they're doing and I want to see what we could improve upon. And locationally, it does seem to matter. The cities or whatever kind of terrain, demographic or hunting elements that they're in. I mean, that does seem to matter. But I mean, we're luckily located in Marion, and we're a really fast growing community. We're getting bigger every year. We're developing every year, and that's just more people to reach. So
Yeah, I'm absolutely excited to see where this takes us. Again, just another avenue to put out the message. And today's message is ownership, accountability, drive.
Is that what you're going to work on this year?
What's that?
She had a goal of what she
No,
was
I'm
gonna
way
work
better
on.
at fishing than she is. But
Oh.
She said, my goal for the year.
Yeah, there you go.
So what's your goal for the year, Jonathan?
That's good.
oh, well, can you give me a second or listen to the next podcast to figure it out?
Sure.
About out of time for this one.